Okay, so now we're on chapter 3. Funny how friends play a part in our lives, both good and bad. Now, as for my friends, well, first I would have to say my best friend was a girl named Dottie. After all, we weren't popular in school. We were wild, uncontrollable, and considered easy. But we did have big dreams. We wanted to find true love, marry, and live close to each other. Dottie had a steady boyfriend who was a drug addict, but we weren't, even though people thought we were. We did smoke a little pot and we drank a little alcohol, but it couldn't be called in any way drug addiction. We just wanted to find love, get away from our parents, grow up, get married, have children. We wanted to find someone to take care of us and hold us at night. We used to spend the night at each other's house, mostly at Dottie's. Dottie's boyfriend would come over and he would bring a friend, and we'd all end up going out. We'd party, have fun, never wanting to come home, never wanting to have reality slap us in the face in some way. But soon enough, reality always catches up with you, and it caught up with Dottie when she unexpectedly announced one day that she was pregnant. I watched Dottie's life turn upside down. We both thought it would be okay. She would be able to get out of the house, get married, live her dreams earlier than she'd expected. Her boyfriend, however, whom she dearly loved, killed her dreams. He said the worst possible thing to a young girl who was only 4 months pregnant. Why don't you just get an abortion? I don't want to get married. I remember Dottie crumbled. I told her to keep the baby and that he might change his mind, but he never did. Dottie's parents took the news hard, but much better than I'm sure my parents would have. After all, her parents didn't kill her, and I knew that would have been a distinct possibility at my house. I guess Dottie having a baby kept me from doing the same thing. I thought I'd get the same reaction from my boyfriend, and I knew I wouldn't be as strong as she'd been. I felt really sorry for Dottie because I knew nobody, especially me, could help her. Around this time, my dad went through this put your foot down stage. I was always getting grounded, mostly for staying out past curfew. I know that I had to be disciplined, but a lot of my dad's punishments were, I don't know, overdone. Dad would, for example, find my car and mess with it so it wouldn't start, so I'd have trouble getting home. Sometimes he'd ground me to the couch so I couldn't even go to my room. His opinion was that having my own room was a privilege and that it was a privilege he could take away. He liked to remind me that having one's own space was not likely because it was his home and I was his kid. Plus, there was always add on punishments, such as I would have to spend more time sitting with the family, which made the bitterness worse, I guess. It was like every time I turned around, I was being, I don't know, tormented, I guess. Perhaps I was spoiled. Perhaps I was a bad kid. But they didn't give me any time to stand up for myself. There was no standing up for myself. There was no talking. There was only yelling, punishments, and making or trying to make me break. And it made me withdraw instead. One time when I was grounded and I wasn't supposed to talk on the phone or listen to music or do virtually anything. My mom had to go pick up my sister from the babysitters, and she let me stay home by myself because I was watching a movie. However, this particular day, my dad got home from work before my mom got back, and he was furious. I tried to explain to him where mom had gone and that she would be back very soon, but he turned off the TV and told me to get mother on the phone and tell her to get her ass back home. I started to cry, but only made him angrier. I had no idea where to call or how to try to reach her. Dad at one point was twisting my arm behind me while I was trying to dial the phone, and I thought he was going to break it. I finally was able to reach my mom at the babysitter's. It'll be I'll be right there, she said. I remember when mom got home they had a terrible fight. I also remember how it was the first time I'd ever heard her stand up for me. But I also felt she was just trying to cover up why she left me there alone more than anything else. I remember my mom did other stuff too. When I would come home from a date, she would smell my breath, smell my clothes, ask me all kinds of questions where I'd been. She would even make me take off my panties so she could look at them. Yuck. Mom always claimed she could see sperm. Okay, so yeah, that that needs a little explanation, but I don't have one. She did that. She really did that. She made me take off my clothes so that she could look at my underwear because supposedly she could tell if I'd had sex. I remember it as a teenager, I believed it, but of course, you can't see sperm. Um, I knew this couldn't be normal part of parenting. At least I didn't think so. Also knew that grounding was acceptable punishment for missing curfew, but keeping kids from their rooms only degrades them. And in my case, I not only felt degraded, but also tormented. After all, holding a teenager prisoner and under guard breaks down any chance at them having open lines of communication. In the end, it only causes resentment. Didn't I just say that a little bit ago? My parents probably thought that watching me constantly kept me from running away, or consistently kept me from running away. They, but I didn't. I ran away several times only to have them track me down. I was forever, or I was, however, more and more determined each time to leave and never return. Eventually, persistence prevailed. Yeah, that needs a little explanation. But yeah, I was very unhappy. And in a small town, there's not much you can do to not be noticed or to get away and not be found. So yeah, there was several times that I stomped away and easily was found. One time my dad wanted me to go into the school and apologize to every class that I had missed. And the guidance counselor intervened, I remember, and said I would not have to do that. And saw how upset I was. But again, like I said, eventually persistence prevails, and I did get away, and they didn't know where I was. Let me describe what it was like for me at 16. I was very cute, not the beauty queen type, just cute, girl next door type. I had a small build, 5 feet tall, size 4, with a perky attitude, and lots of love inside. I was wanting someone so desperately, some way of leaving the life I'd known, finding happiness. I wanted to find my knight in shining armor, someone that would carry me away from all my problems. I can remember going out with this one boy younger than me and having him tell me in private that I was a real nice girl, a real friendly, sweet girl. He had heard rumors about me, but after going out with me, he was sorry he believed them. Maybe nobody had given me a fair shake, like I didn't know that already. I thought it was kind of funny, but he said he was sorry for listening to all the rumors about me. On most of my dates, I had a really good time. We'd go to a movie, a ball game, a burger joint, take a drive, do a little kissing and fondling. We didn't actually go all the way as many times as everyone thought, but I will admit that I did have sex more than I should have in those early years. However, there were rumors no matter how the date went. The boy might see me a couple times, but then no phone calls, nothing. They would even avoid me like the plague. The boys never gave me a reason, and pretty soon see them hanging out with someone else. Other girls just didn't seem to have the problems I had with holding on to boyfriends. Some of the girls I grew up even dated their boyfriends for a long time, for 2 or 3 years, and then eventually married them, the same ones that had taken their virginity. So why was my life so totally screwed? Why did those girlfriends have what I didn't? Why was I the kind of girl a boy didn't want to marry? After all, I couldn't pretend I was a virgin. A lot of people knew better. Either I was a slut or a tease. I couldn't even win for losing, no matter what I did. One boy told me that he had dug a hole, that I had dug a hole for myself. I was just as good as anyone else, maybe even a little better than some. I was honest, caring, funny, but that was my downfall. I was too trusting and too desperate. I shouldn't have believed all the lies boys told me. After all, I knew in my heart that what they said, or that they would say anything to me to have sex. They that was all they cared about. They didn't care about my feelings. I was a better person than anyone gave me credit for being. But in my search for someone to call me their own, I'd given up something of myself, and I could never go back. I'd lost my virginity and my innocence forever. Gee, thanks a lot. Now I'm in that hole and I can't get out. My search for my knight, my constant need to be loved, has cost me my virtue, my life. And now what? Am I supposed to just accept the life of some kind of prostitute or stripper? Does this mean my life is over? All the wolves had easily taken me in, and now I could never go back. I was alone. I remember discovering that young men were better than boys my own age. They weren't, well, they were still jerks, but they weren't as big of jerks, I guess you would say. They didn't push themselves on me, and they treated me much better than some of the boys in my school. Still, they didn't want to settle down or get married, especially to a young girl. I was just mainly a fling. They wanted to party, be bachelors, go out with me for a few months, and dump me for someone else. During that time in my life, everything was crashing down around me, and it would have been nice if my parents had understood what was really going on. After all, my life wasn't the one I had pictured for myself or even wanted, but it was the one that was open to me. One time I had this boy waiting for me downstairs. All my dad saw was a high school senior, class president, and father who was a surgeon. The boy was everything a girl could ask for. All I saw was a boy who pursued me constantly, with hands like an octopus, and only one thing on his mind: sex. I know why he wanted to go out with me, or I knew why he wanted to go out with me. No one else would have him. He was a jerk, and he just liked to put notches in his belt. Anyway, I remember when I came downstairs, Dad was sitting and making friends with him, something I'd never seen my dad do before. When I walked in the room, both of them jumped up. Dad took me aside and told me to apologize for being late and to go have a good time. I shook my head, insisting that there was never a date. I didn't feel like going out, nor did I even want to go out with this guy. After all, he was sleazy and just pretending to be an upstanding citizen with good intentions. It was a joke. No matter what my dad wanted from me, I knew what I wanted out of life and ultimately what my dreams were: a prince, marriage, kids, a home with a white picket fence and flowers in the yard. I wanted it all. I wanted the dream. I know now that I set my expectations too high and that dreams are far little fetched, or a little far fetched, I think I should say. That knight in shining armor, the prince on the white horse, was not reality. But as a young girl, I thought it wasn't so far fetched. It was like Cinderella living a life of drudgery, and someday I'd be swept away by a prince to live my life as a princess by his side, happily ever after. But how was I ever supposed to get from here to there? It seemed as though a dark cloud hung over me. I guess by the time I was pretty much uncontrollable, and probably had been for a long time. I think my parents had pretty much given up trying to straighten me out. If I had been them, I would have thrown in the towel. I was gone most of the time, especially on weekends, drunk, stoned. My parents would ground me for weeks on end, taking my keys away. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. I ran away constantly. I didn't know if I would ever live to see another day, and truthfully, I didn't even care if I did. Parts of my life back then fade in and out of my memory. I lose track of time, places, and dates. Images are blurred, just pieces and bits. Sometimes the memories don't even make sense to me. For example, I remember being at a party and pulling a gun on a room full of kids because some boy had taken my pants off and hid them. I remember I was angry, stoned, drunk, and holding a 357 Magnum handgun on my friends, as well as they were all just as drunk as me. I could have accidentally shot someone, or they could have taken the gun away and just as easily shot me. Another time, I'd been arguing with a girl about a guy I'd been sleeping with. She called me a bitch along with a few other things and was leaving the party. I threw this knife that I had for some reason. It missed her only by a few inches and stuck in the door. The room fell silent, and everyone looked at me thinking I'd missed her on purpose, that in some way I'd meant it as a warning to her that next time I'd kill her. I knew it wasn't a warning. There wasn't any hidden meaning. I'd just been lucky and hadn't hit her. My temper had completely gotten out of hand. I was out of my mind, struggling with my sanity, a psychotic basket case. I wish I wished every day that I would just die. I remember that. But it was too but I was just too chicken to actually end it all. I had struggled with the idea a number of times. Anyway, I remember one time I got into this fight with a girl right in the middle of town at a local hamburger hangout. I was so drunk. She jumped me from behind and slammed me to the ground. I don't remember what we were fighting about, just that my friends were yelling at me to defend myself and hit her. However, I was so wasted that I couldn't hardly stand, let alone hit a girl. I do remember her slamming my head against the concrete several times. I knew I was hurt, but all I could do was laugh. Can you believe that? I just laughed, and I remember every minute of it. I somehow managed to pull a switchblade on her and had every intention of stabbing her. But someone tackled me from behind and took away the knife. The sound of sirens brought an abrupt end to the fight, and everyone bailed. I was lucky that my friends had saved me from my worst enemy, myself. I went to school the next day, but she didn't. Everybody was talking about the fight. The girl had gotten a black eye and supposedly had been cut. She wasn't able to face me. To my friends, I was the underdog. But I knew I was just lucky once again. I was never going to be popular or voted prom queen. I was what one might call a bad seed. I wasn't the badass everyone thought I was. I wasn't the undisciplined, uncontrollable wild child that everyone thought I was. I was screaming inside for help, drowning in quicksand. The walls were closing in on me. I was scared of everything, including myself. When I ran away for good, my friends hid me out. Back then, I did do a lot of drugs. Nothing hard, just pot and speed. One day, I finally said enough. I have to get out. I have to get a grip on my life. I eventually ended up at my grandmother's house where I intended to start over, make a break from my old friends and my old life, but I soon met new friends just like the old ones. One guy I dated for a while had a trailer. His name was Ricky. He was in his early 20s and he seemed to genuinely care about me. I thought I'd found my prince. He was strong, good looking, and we were the perfect couple. Once he walked through a snowstorm to see me. He had faced my dad and even talked about getting married to me. Then our relationship turned sour. One night I was at the trailer and we had been partying with some other friends, some of his friends. Then things started to get out of hand and completely out of control. Ricky took me into the bedroom and I thought we were going to have sex. Instead, we got into an argument and he told me it was over, to get out and never come back. And of course, I didn't want to leave. I tried to get him to change his mind. I think I started begging, actually. Suddenly, he acted like everything was okay. He started to kiss me and then he grabbed my wrist and held them over my head. He handcuffed me to the bedpost, parted my legs, and tied each foot to the rail. I guess at first I thought he was playing some kind of kinky game. After all, we'd been drinking. We'd tried things like that before, so I really wasn't scared. After all, I loved him. He was kissing me a little rougher than usual and was fondling my breasts. Then all of a sudden he stopped and he whispered in my ear, "You won't come back after this." What was he saying? It didn't make sense to me. He left the room, and then one by one his friends came in the room and raped me. They didn't do any real physical harm, but they crushed what little spirit I had left. After all, I was only 16, going on 17. If I could have killed myself that night, I would have. The next day when I woke up, I had been untied. No handcuffs. I got up and no one was around. I thought I was in, sh- I think I was in shock. I took a shower and I kept thinking that maybe I had deserved it. Then I thought if I cleaned the house up, Ricky would come home and tell me he was sorry. Then it would all be forgotten. We'd all been drunk. That was it. It wasn't so bad. I could forget it. I cleaned the trailer and then left, still not knowing exactly what I should feel or what I should do. I went home and never spoke it. I never told anyone. I did, however, go back to see him, sort of a last ditch effort to get his love back. He invited me in and said we needed to talk. We went down the hall towards his room, and there in his bed was another girl. She was someone I knew, a friend of mine. I got mad and I tore her bracelet off. I remember as I was leaving, Ricky just stood there. I think he thought it was cute. He had broken my heart and he knew it. I left the girl's bracelet on my arm like some sort of prize. It was over, definitely over. After the fight, I got 2 bottles of slow gin and went out with some friends to a local hangout. I wanted to end it all. I don't remember getting into my car. I don't remember driving. But I do remember feeling like I was flying at one point. I remember trying to press the brake, only I was in midair and I didn't know it. I jumped a 40-foot cliff in my Camaro. I really did see my life pass before my eyes, just like people say it does before you die. I saw my family and friends and even my papa. I saw everybody. I remember I couldn't open my eyes, and for some reason, I remember thinking as though I couldn't hear. I don't remember, however, feeling any pain. Something told me to get out of the car. The door was jammed, but I managed to get out and I fell on the ground. I remember the ground and I remember the wetness. It felt like someone else was there with me. I felt like my life was drifting away, and I remember feeling drained. I thought I was dead. I remember crying, God help me, please. The next thing I remember, I woke up in the hospital. My mom was by my side. She told me that the rescue workers had found me on top of the cliff. They said they saw someone dressed in white leaning over me, but whoever it was left when the ambulance drove up. It was like they had just disappeared. Mom asked if anyone was with me, and I told her no, I didn't think so. Everyone was looking for the person in white. Mom said when the hospital called her, they told her she needed to come down and make an identification to see if I was her daughter. Mom said the rescue workers thought my name was Jamie because of the bracelet I had on. And they were thinking that the figure in white spotted at the scene could have been the passenger in the car. When Mom arrived at the hospital, I was unconscious and very combative. They had tied me down for my own protection. They told her I kept screaming, leave me alone. Papa is here. Go away. My papa is here. Everyone in my family, including me, believed that Papa was that figure in white guarding me, that it was Papa who saved my life. Mom said it was a rainy night. My clothes weren't even wet. My car was totaled. It had jumped a 40-foot cliff and plowed up $500 worth of soybeans when it hit. Yet I didn't have a scratch on me. No dirt, nothing. All I can say is I want to believe that it was my grandfather, my papa. Probably never know what really happened that night. Maybe God heard my plea for help. Maybe Papa heard it too.